Hello, this is Mariano Martinez Peck here. I work as a software engineer for instantiations, and in this video, I wanted to show you some unique features for debugging that VASmalltalk has. So I will start with a demo web application, which looks something very simple like this. It's a web application written with CSI web framework. You can see here I am running locally on development. So you click on a light and it just changes. This web application is running locally with my development environment with BA Smalltalk. And if you can see, if I click on the green light, there will be an error which is on purpose to show the features of this video. So I will click here and you will see that a fully functional debugger comes in, and if you walk back a few frames you can see where the error was in this case, like for example array new first, or where I basically sent first to an empty array. Okay, so this is one typical error. In this case, I am in the development image. But imagine that we want to uh, deploy this into a server, and then we are having issues on the server, not locally. So for demoing purposes, I will use a Raspberry Pi as my remote server, which you can see I have already SSH into the Pi, and I have uh, the same web application running here. Um, you can see I will run the application right now with um, the typical way that you have for debugging errors on production. So if I go now, instead of localhost, I now go to Mariano Pi 3.local, which is the host name of the Raspberry. I should get, okay, this the same application, but now running on the Pi. So the first scenario, which I call, let's say, a scenario one, it's where you create a log with the stack of the error. Okay, so I will click on the green, and this will eventually stop the server. And if I go to the console, you will see that it says that uh, it that there was this error, and the the error was dumped into this walkback.log. So here I have a total commander open. On the left side, I am connected into the Pi. Uh, so if we refresh this, we can see this wallback file generated on the Pi. So if we open this, this is the typical log file where you print all of the information about the system and then all of the stack. So if we look for uh, green somewhere here on the stack, you see the primitive fail when sending first from this method. So you can see that the stack is not very useful. All you can see basically it's the chain of messages, but you cannot really see what these objects were under state. For example, this one, the receiver was this CSI component. And what was the state of this? I have no clue. If I am lucky and the variables were something more or less primitive like booleans or strings, maybe I can see it like in this case. But as soon as I have something more complex, uh, the stack, the, the log shorts fall. So let me show you some of the great features that we have. Uh, the first one is called stack dump. So we can basically, let's run this again. I will click again on the green, but now notice that I am running uh, a different version of my application which stack dump support. So you can see that now instead of writing the wallbacked log file, it now created, it says finishes dumping stack file c600 SDF. So here what the system just did is to make a binary snapshot of the whole execution stack and with all the states and all the objects and dump that into a binary file. So if we go, you can see obviously the web application stop. And if you now go and see the on the Pi, on the server, I can see this CSI00 SDF file. So what can I do now with that? So let's copy that from the server into our local machine. Okay, so I will copy it. On the left side, I have the working directory of my development environment. So what I will do now is on my development image, I will uh, open a debugger and then I will say add stack trace and I will select the file that was generated on the server. And this will fill up the debugger with the dumped stack. So I can go and see where the error was triggered. You can see in this case, again, I have an empty array to which I have sent the message first. So this was obviously fail because the array was empty and I cannot send first to a empty array. But notice that I can inspect this. For example, I can from here I can inspect the collection and I can see the boolean, which was this one, and I can inspect the component, the CSI component, and I can see what was the values of the objects. So this is a really snapshot of the execution stamp with all the state associated to that. So this is much better uh, to debug than the uh, log file. I have much more information. So this was uh, the second scenario which I wanted to show you, which is very useful for debugging on production. And the last one is um, imagine that you want to check at one like a breakpoint. You want to put a breakpoint on your server and you want to debug that. By debug, I mean that you can uh, go over the debugger, go over and then even restart and resume everything like you would do on a local environment, but from here. So from my development machine, I would like to debug a remote server, which could be anywhere on the world. So what I will do is I will run um, again. but now this remote debug version of the system. And if I go here again, you will see the web application here. So I will click on the green now, and you will see that from Firefox it looks like waiting. It looks like the callback of the bottom it's still being executed. Okay, so it's waiting. It looks like nothing happened. But if now I go to my development environment, you can see that I got a debugger open on this method. Okay, so here I put a halt for this example. The halt, it's an exception that halts the execution, so that you can evaluate code, inspect, and do whatever you want. So you can see now all the buttons are available, so I can do a mouse over and into and do like the typical debugger. And I can also change code. So for example, I can, let's say I want to browse this method, and I say, okay, I don't want to halt anymore, so I will remove that. And then I want to also change the rendering. Let's say that now I want the green light to be rendered as red. Okay, and I will save this as well. Okay, so I change those both changes. So I will now just resume, and there you see the browser continue its rendering. The light is red, so I could live change the code from my local development machine. I change the code and I resume the the debugger that was happening on the remote server. And this goes via TCP/IP. So I can do this in this case the pi is next to me, but you can do this with any machine connected into the internet. And it's not just the pi, it could be anything. So I think this is very powerful for debugging on servers or even for IoT. I think that debugging IoT boards where you don't have your full development environment, it's very nice. And that's all. I hope you enjoy and see you next time.